Hello and welcome to the Black Mind Podcast, episode 115? Yeah, 115.
Yeah.
I'm your host tonight, Allan Wheatley, for I think the third week in a row.
Yeah, because, you know,
I'm joined only by our ever lovable friend, Josh.
Yeah, because what's-his-face can't sort his fucking time schedule at all for his work and say, I got shit to do, I have other responsibilities. Fucking can't do that straight.
I have responsibilities too.
Yeah.
So, like...
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think, to be fair with him, his schedule's weird.
Buggered.
So,
if anything, it's kind of weird how he's kind of like, well, from what Jeff says is that it makes it sound like he's the most important person at this job, and it's like, fucking, how did it get to that point that you're like the only person that could do anything?
Yep.
Like, fucking quit that place, because when it gets that bad, you quit. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, no, it's still just beyond weird. No, from what I've discovered for the most part is this week we're recording actually a full day later. Like, we are a full 24 hours recording later than we should be.
Yep.
Like, it's a full 24 hours because we're supposed to record at a certain time every week on one day.
Yep.
But the thing is we went to go record yesterday. I got home at X time, which was really late for me, but I had to do lots of work, so I got home pretty late. I said, hey guys, I'm jumping on. Do we want to do the podcast? Josh is here. Josh is ready. We have done our due diligence, and we're in chat asking people all day who wants to be on the podcast. No one's talking to us. So finally we start pinging each person individually and directly, getting them going, hey, yo, do you want to be on the podcast? Hey, yo, do you want to be on the podcast? Hey, yo, do you want to be on the podcast?
Don't ignore us, motherfucker. We can tell you're online playing fucking Doom right now. Come on. Dip.
And it's not that Jeff's schedule is weird. He had said earlier in the day he can't jump on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, getting anyone to respond has been like a struggle this week.
It's fucking pulling teeth for some reason.
It was so hard this week, and the thing is me and Josh have made our topic list for this week, and so we're not gonna lie. The reason why the name of this podcast is a slow cast is this is going to be a slow podcast. Because, like, I'm not caught up in gaming news. I actually haven't even had a chance to stop and look at gaming news. Politics, as much as I'd like to talk about politics, I don't have Jeff here to talk about what politics was.
And I am going to be just a brick you're going to be talking to that says nothing.
Yeah, so. That's the thing. And that's the reason why I'm like, well, I can't talk politics tonight. But it's just, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not going to lie. This might be a shorter episode than usual. We're going to talk about things like.
So basically, this is going to be the slow podcast. But the thing is, though, I got this makeshift fireplace. We'll put it right in front of us. I'm going to light it up, and I'm going to turn off the lights, and we're going to tell about the best creepypasta stories we got here.
Oh, yeah. We got to talk about the creepypastas. We're also going to talk about actually something that I'm a little bit excited about that actually just got announced this week, as well as new Star Wars stuff from last week from the two back-to-back weekends of the Force weekends, which I'm actually really excited about. But first, we're going to talk about some of our favorite creepypastas.
Oh yeah. So.
Oh god.
I think there's like 3 to 4 different creepypastas I can remember from either from like TV shows or like from the SPC website especially, that I just pull out and go, I love this idea because it's such like, the lore building and like the universe that exists. Like, how does that work? And like, how would that,
SCP is amazing for its lore. Like, oh my god, I think they've got 3,000 potential items they've got, and none of the logs are built up and actually like written out. Like, there's actually a huge number of gaps that we've got.
Yeah.
But like it's just so cool. Like, you read it and you're like, wow, that's actually real cool. There's one that I was listening to called the Broken God, which is basically you have to collect parts of the body which are machine parts, and in some cases it's just like a simple mechanical part. Other times it's just like a piece of metal, and you have to and it congeals together. And it basically drives the people insane slowly but surely. But it creates a church. You create the Church of the Broken God. And it's just it's weird at the same time, but it's so cool at the same time that you're just like, hey, yo, like it's like, oh my god, I love. There's actually there's the SCP. I can't remember what its number is, but it's a statue that if you blink, it snaps in front of you, and if you blink again and it's touching you, it kills you with a snap by snapping your neck.
Oh yes,
it moves so fast. But there's another SCP which is a non-threatening SCP. They're just little two eyeballs that run around on wheels. Like, they're little eyeball wheels. Eye wheels.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. I can't remember what they're called. And they just run around the SCP facility, just generally just staying out of the way, not bothering people or anything like that. And they just kind of like watch. That's all they do.
Right.
But they're like, they tie it into the statue where like it snaps the one where if you blink it gets close to you and snaps your neck. It's actually done really cool because they don't the eyeballs, the little ball eyeballs on wheels don't blink. So like in a scenario, there's a janitor who goes in and the eyeballs follow him into this room and just watch the statue while they clean the room. And like a few of the SCP like scientists are like, oh, interesting. But at the same time, it's just like, well, okay, it's like, the world building for this thing is so cool. Like, there's one where it's a train that comes back that goes back and forth in time, and like, there was actually one where they send an agent into it, and then the same agent comes back on the train, but he's dead, and he comes back with the message, stop sending agents is the message they get, and they've stopped sending agents since then. And like, there's the other one which is the zombie plague. There's another one where there's actually like a
wait for the train one. Like, why would he even send agents in the first place if it's going back and forth in time? Like,
they don't know what point in time it's going to. They haven't figured out because they've sent like I think 5 or 6 agents into it, and they all return dead. They all return straight up dead. But at the same time, it's just, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's actually like really cool. There's another one where a guy actually comes back from the past, comes back from the future, and explains how certain items like will like fix problems and like bring cures for certain other SCPs. Other SCPs will break containment and cause massive destruction. And he in the comments like, well, what are you? It's like, I'm the SCP director of XX time. I can't go back to the future, but I'm gonna try and help make sure you guys safe. And that's the reason why is he's actually classified as a new SSP as well, because he's from the future. They don't know what's going on. Da 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 da.
Yeah, and there's also a whole bunch of like SCPs that are like, what was it, the coffee machine, which I love to death because there's so much stuff about it of like, what can you make out of this coffee machine? Well, it has a keyboard on the front of it, so let's see, we can get juice out of it. Hey, yeah, we can get juice. Can we get milk out of it? Yeah. Can I get diamond out of this? Hey, yeah, liquid. It's liquid diamond in a paper cup, but you got liquid diamond.
Yep.
And fuck, it also keeps going of like how there was a containment breach where the coffee machine was held at in the the concession room, and of course there was a containment breach, so there was this monster killing everyone, and everyone's like, oh fuck, we're all stuck in this concession room with the coffee machine, and all the agents are like either dead or they're broken in half, and they're just barely clinging on to life. And one of the researchers was like, fuck, I need to figure out how to heal these people so we can get back our footing. So it was like he looked at the coffee machine, knows the powers it has, and is like, let's see if this works. So there's also some hooks to the machine that are like, oh, we can't quite do everything, because if you tell the machine to try to make like antimatter, or you try to tell the machine of like, oh, can you make a cup of rhythm or something? Usually the machine can't do it, because it's like, well, this is not an actual thing. You have to find some actual concept in order for me to pull it from ether of somewhere, so I can give you this cup. But the researcher, he asked the machine, I want health knowledge. All the health knowledge. So the machine went, okay. So it gave him a cup of health knowledge, and I think the cup, like, it also, the machine dispenses a cup to go with the coffee, and the cup was, I think it was just full of like, health symbols all over the place. And the dude drank the cup, and he instantly knew how to like heal all the people within the room, and like whatever situation people need, like, oh, we got a broken arm, I know how to freaking fix that shit up and whatever. And and the funny thing was, once the situation was cleared out, the researcher went back to the machine with other researchers and was like, wait, so you asked the machine for health knowledge? Yeah. Weird, because we thought the machine couldn't do that because it wasn't an actual physical thing. That's a concept. So they're like, so wait, did the machine not want to do that in the first place? Is it like, did the machine always could do that, but it didn't want to, or was or is it like sentient in some degree? So it was like,
no. I really love reading about the Keter level SCPs. Because there's 3 levels. For those who don't actually know what SCP, I don't know what you're doing on the internet, because you must be new. But like SCP,
to be fair, the site's super old, and it's like,
it's still really active. It's like there's new things being put up there constantly, isn't there? Like things get edited, updated, changed.
The thing is, though, this site is so niche. Like, if you don't know a person who's actively on this site or something, you won't know it exists. Maybe if they could post on Facebook or something, but that's kind of a maybe.
But yeah, no. But at the same time, I love the 3. I love like the idea of the 3 levels of.
Like the danger containment.
Well, yeah, they did it like there's like the basic, like the most common and the most average one is the first level, which is like, it's non-threatening. It's just weird and odd, and we're securing it and containing it because we're not 100% sure what it's capable of doing. Then the next one up is elucid, which is, it can be dangerous in situations, but for the most part, it doesn't cause any problems. And then the 3rd level, which is Keter, as I just mentioned. And these are just like, no matter what happens, it kills you. It will always kill you. It just...
matter of time.
Oh my god! It's just a matter of time. Not even a matter of time. It happens. Like the one I was talking about, the statue. The statue is like the statue that when you blink, it's basically like an angel from Doctor Who, but it doesn't look like an angel. It's still really fucked up. But it's a Keter level. It will kill you. It will always kill you. That's the thing about it. And over time, I've just kind of like stopped, and like whenever I read the Keter ones, I'm like, these are really cool. Like there's a house which is called the House of Flesh, where it's just like this amalgamation of all these like flesh-like bodies just piled together and malformed into each other, and it's just like, whoa. And like anybody who gets sent in there does become a part of the house. It's consumed and they become a part of the house.
Oh, is that new video game that's coming out? It's called Scorn.
I do believe that's, well, jeez, that's like, bad. I hate you.
It's like the same idea.
So
like it's like Giger-esque. Like, oh man, everything's made of bones and flesh and teeth and all that junk. And like, I have no idea what the story is because all I've seen is gameplay trailer of it. But it's like, oh, this gun you have, ammo is teeth. Oh, this thing you walked across, it looks like a weird mishmash of birds, babies, and like vomit gross all over it. And you're just walking through this entire like giant like, I don't know, space base or something. And it's just, yeah, a lot of it is just really fucking weird. But like, yeah, like this flesh building is like, oh, it feels like, you know, Geiger-esque, you know, like everything's flesh colored.
Yeah.
All
Oh my
of
god.
it's flesh colored.
Oh man. But here's the thing, like I love the idea of SCP, and I love the idea of the creepypastas too out there too. And like they're all really cool, well done ideas, but at the same time they can be, for me, the creepypastas are very much hit and miss things. Because for the most part, the creepypastas, they're either really well written and you get really engaged. Oh, pardon me. And you get really engaged and you just love every moment of your life as you're reading these things, or they're just really fucking terrible and you're just like, God, this is fake. Like the big one for me is like Lavender Town Syndrome. I found the idea of the creepypasta was really cool. It was very well thought out, and it's kind of got some basis in reality where like there was like problems with like the initial release of Pokemon, but like nothing that is severe. Like the worst thing that happened was I think some kid got a like very severe migraine from falling asleep while in Lavender Town, I think in Japan, and the most reason why that happened was because of like how the volume was and stuff like that. And that's the thing. But like they take it to the nth degree, and I loved it as a kid. But at the same time, there are ones that are just so dumb.
Yeah, you just read and look at and go, this is fucking retarded. Like,
it's not even that it was fucking retarded. It, like you sat there and you stared at the screen and you're like, oh, I feel myself getting dumber reading this.
No, that's one of the SCPs working as magic. You read something so dumb, you just go, oh, and it gets stronger. But it can't kill you. It's just this pain of like, what the fuck did I just read?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's SCP. What was it? I don't know, 2,999.
Something like that. Yeah.
I found two more that I read back way like freaking high school. And I was like, oh, it was kind of going like, man, the lore shit on this is so fucking cool. The one I posted in the doc, SCP-713. This one is a computer. It's like an old, 95 computer that you probably see in like in your computer class or whatever. It's running Windows XP, it looks like, or at least 95. But the weird gimmick about this computer is that, the cursor, it can actually get out of the screen and into real life. Weird.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's like, what else can you do? Oh, you can drag and drop items from the real life into the computer. Oh, that's cool. Could you copy and paste this? Yeah, to infinite degree. Oh!
Yeah. For me, like a really bad one for me is I think the one that's like related to like the Zelda Majora's Mask one, where it's got the save file name, I think Sam.
Oh yes.
Or Toby or something like that. And it's just like, oh yeah, it's this kid who drowned and saved. And I'm just like sitting there like, that's so dumb. This is so dumb. Like, it's a really popular one. I will freely admit it's well written, but like for me, when I first read it and I'm like reading it, I'm just like, this is just retardedly dumb.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not, and like that's the thing. I will freely admit, I get spooked real easy. There are some creepypastas that I just like, I look at and I go, wow.
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's a thing. But there are other ones where you're like, oh well, interesting.
Yeah, there's a Japanese manga artist or manga writer or whatever. Forget his name, but he's super popular for his horror stories. And one of his horror stories was the concept of these the spiral. And so basically the idea is that this town is, unassuming, like it's just, normal town until like this one, like in the story narrows down to this father and their family, going about their day, and the father is absolutely obsessed with collecting things with spirals in them. Like it'd be anything. So it'd be like oh, I got this picture with spirals in it. Oh, I got this teacup that has spirals all over it. Oh, I got this pencil, it's shaped as spiral. Yeah, you can't sharpen it or anything, but it's a spiral. And it just keeps going and going, and you're wondering where's this horror story going? And you start seeing, and also you can see these scans from the manga, and as you read through the story, you're like, oh, it's not just like an enemy that you have to worry about. It's a concept that you have to be afraid of, which is like, what do you mean? No, this spiral is controlling people somehow from some other dimension that you can't see, you can't fathom, but yet it's controlling people, and you're like, oh no. You can't stop, and you don't know where it's coming from. So it could be anywhere at any time, and it could be fucked immediately. It's like... It's just so, like horrible, this constant doom of like, oh man, if you see the spiral anywhere, try to destroy it and just run away, basically. And it just gets to a point of like, the characters look up at the sky and there's nothing but spirals everywhere, like those pictures you go and zoom in for infinite amount, and it's just the same thing over and over. So the characters look up the sky and you see these spirals everywhere, and they're like, oh, we're fucked, aren't we? Yeah, we're probably gonna die in some spiral accident. Shit. Yeah, like, frick, if I could just find that, like, I'm sure if I type in Japanese horror spiral, I could probably find it. But yeah, like some really good, unique, like, that's not creepypasta, but that's like, oh man, this is like fucking weird ass shit.
Yeah, no, again, creepypasta and SCP are like some of the best like lore things for the internet, because they're purely that. They are literally they're so cool. Like, I love because it's internet lore at its finest. It's like Slenderman, because that's another one that's a really cool thing from creepypasta is Slenderman or I think it's Freddy, or whatever. It, like, a lot of these like really cool like creepy games that have come out in like the past like 5 years that Markiplier or Jacksepticeye or PewDiePie have played, where they're all basically horror games following like these internet stories, like Slenderman or I'm trying to remember one, but it doesn't matter. And like, they're all like, again, it's internet lore. It's the world the internet has built for itself, and it's just phenomenally done. I will freely admit to myself right now that like the Slenderman stories that like originally started coming out at the time when Slenderman was really popular, I fell in love with, because they were really good reads. Most of them were like phenomenal. A lot of what people did for like images were like fantastic, play on tricks for like actual images, because I think some of them, all they did was just like pull like a small little bit to one side or change an image and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But for them, like, oh yeah. But I think I'm done with creepypasta for now. So here's the fun thing for everyone. We have news about the my favorite series being Star Wars. I know. I think some of you have heard about it. It's a really good series, except for the prequels. And as of right now, I'm skeptical towards Episode 8, because I've been kind of like, when I went back and rewatched Episode 7 a little while ago, and I kind of like sat down. I'm like, now that the brand spanking coat of paint has worn off, I don't know how I feel about this movie more, because the main character of the show, which is supposed to be, which, by the way, because of how he was introduced, should have been Finn, but we all know it's Rey because Rey is Bae. But that's beside the point. We know that Rey is a Mary Sue to the God's End. But you know what? That's a rant for another time. I'm just going to leave that alone at this point. I've had this talk with other podcasters and stuff like that in another chat, but like, the news for me this week has been the new Rebels trailer, new stuff for Star Wars of the past, I think, week or two, and like really cool information's been announced. Of course, for me, I have my Star Wars Armada stuff that's been announced, being the Chimera, the MC-75, and like things like that. But the new thing that's come out for this is Star Wars Rebels, the new trailer, which came out I think on Tuesday or Wednesday this week. And like all it is just like, here's your official announcement date. And I have a month and a week to go before I get Rebels again, and I'm excited because it's an hour long episode, and it's dealing with the weapon that Sabine designed that she mentions in season 3. And it's looking like it's going to be a really good start, because it looks like it's going to be like a really brutal weapon, like even by like Star Wars standards. Looks like it's going to be a straight up brutal weapon. They make mention to Project Stardust, which is of course the Death Star. They make mention to how Sol Guerrera is moving towards his like almost terrorist stance. You have like Kanan and all them going through their major like their own little personal rebellion on Lothal and stuff like that. And then the other Star Wars news which was announced is new ships and new stuff for Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. And they've shown off. And by the way, fuck the class name of the ship. But they've shown off Supreme Leader Snoke's Mega Star Destroyer, and just so you know, it's a Mega Class Star Destroyer. That's the class name. Fuck that class name, by the way, because it should be the I do believe it's the name of the ship is called the Supremacy, and it's a 60-kilometer wide ship. It looks like a giant flying wing, and it looks like just from the back, like because they show like I think 4 views of it, nothing super up close, nothing super detailed, but you can see from behind there looks like there's slots where ships would dock and go for repairs. It looks like it's a mobile shipyard for the First Order, and I'm like, that's really cool. I just hate the name of that class, and I don't know how I feel about the design, because it's 60 kilometers across, which is 3 Executor class Super Star Destroyers wide. Which, if for those of you who remember episodes 6 and 5, it's that big ship that Darth Vader commands. That's the Executor. That's the Executor class Super Star Destroyer. And it's 3 of those across, and it's about, I think, half of one of those deep. So it's about half the length of that class of ship. But at the same time, I'm like, it looks really cool. I'm actually really excited about, like, I want to see what it looks like in the movie. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, I mean, I guess I don't know how I feel about it, because it looks like it's just a widened version of a Super Star Destroyer. It doesn't look all that impressive. It's got a really cool concept, and they've announced a new droid with it, which is, I think, I can't remember its name. I will guarantee you by the end of when episode 8 comes out, I will know the name of that droid, because we know BB-8. But like they also announced the new Resistance ship, which is the Raddus class. What we know is it's the name of the ship is called the Raddus, which is named after Admiral Raddus. It's a 6.5 kilometer long warship, I think. That was like it's basically like it looks like a Viscount class from the old lore, and it looks really cool. It looks really nice. I'm curious because we have the possibility that we might see Home 1 die off on screen because of how it's written up. Its background is it's written up as if it's the flagship of the Resistance. The way it's worded, it seems like it's supposed to be the flagship of the Resistance. But we know that the Home 1, the MC-80C that is, iconic from It's a Trap scenes and stuff like that, how it looked. That's the flagship of the Resistance in Episode 7. But we didn't see it. We didn't get to see any screen time of it. You know what? I'm okay with that. But like, Star Wars is getting really hyped, but at the same time, I'm kind of like nervous as all hell about Episode 8, because I'm kind of like, well, I mean, as long as they don't do what some of the theories that I've heard have been circulating around the internet, which is, what's it called?
Rumor?
The rumor, yeah. The rumor is that like Episode 8 might be dealing in the idea of reincarnation, And the way the Force is thought up in like the current lore, if this is actually what happens, which is a possibility, but I don't agree with it because I just don't feel like it'd be very, very wise for them to do. It kind of shoot themselves in the foot. But I'm just gonna go, okay, let's see how it goes. Let's see how the story happens. But like the idea of reincarnation just kind of like sits off with a lot of Star Wars fans because we're like, why would this be a thing? The Force is an all-encompassing force that eventually just absorbs you back into it. You don't get to live again. Like that's the entire point of why the Sith are trying to search for immortality rather than just like reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
But the Sith are gone. But that's beside the point. I'm kind of like just sitting down going like, I love Star Wars, but maybe I don't know how this Christmas is going to go with the new Star Wars. I am excited for it, but I'm also being like, hey, so are we sure this is going to be a good thing? Because if the idea of reincarnation comes back, I don't know how I feel about it because it feels like it could be done very, very poorly.
Yeah, like, I guess, like, this reincarnation idea, like, in a sci-fi sort of, like, the thing is, everything's so sci-fi to the point of, like, it kind of feels like cloning, like, you think they can clone and shit. So it's like, well, if you try to throw in this, like, reincarnation idea, it's like, don't you mean just throw a person in a robot body or something? Because that's kind of close. I mean, that would probably be a better storyline of like, oh, we'll just throw ourselves in these robot bodies because we figured that shit out. But, waffle a bit? Well, fine, let's talk about waffles. You know, I like waffles. Waffles are good. Although it has to be the certain kind of waffle. I've kind of tried before to make a waffle for breakfast. I couldn't seem to get the recipe right. It seems like they're either like too just not moist enough, really, or like, you know, the right consistency where it does not feel dry in your mouth. I think there's one time I tried a sourdough waffle, and it was just amazing. But you think you kind of can emulate that again? No. Friggin' doesn't not work. Oh, at least not a second time. I was just talking about waffles for breakfast. But anyway.
Oh, jeez, yeah. Just so the audience knows, I had to get up and go to the washroom. And just instead of having a third person here to cover for the fact that if one of us gets up and goes to the washroom, gets up to grab something, the other person now has to waffle for like an extra like minute or two, which is bad.
I was totally waffling. I was talking about how it was like I made this waffle recipe at one point, and I was like, man, it's not a very good waffle though.
You are so bad.
It's like, oh, Josh, you're such a wonderful child, you. And I'm like, hee.
And then you actually listen to you talk, you're like, oh no.
I still giggle.
Geez.
I still giggle.
It's almost bad as what is the thing that you were talking about earlier this week? Polybius?
Polybius.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that is another creepypasta that was a myth from Egon's of the early arcade games of like, oh, this supposed arcade game that was put out in a few selected arcades. If you play it, you get everything from migraines to deletion of you liking video games to you just end up dying. And it's basically like this story plot. Like you try to look into this, and it's like this game either doesn't exist at all, or this was confused with some other old arcade game from back in the day. And also, this like the entirety of the story, there is another dude on YouTube. His account, if I could look into it, he looks into like where like he talks about the myth. Talks about where it came from, who talked about it first, like where, like how did this entire thing even start in the first place. And it turns out this Polybius, this arcade myth of like, oh, this arcade machine kills you, it's probably stemming from one person who was trying to increase traffic to his website about video game archival. So, like, which is both kind of sadistic and a good thing, because it's like, oh, this website's all about, niche arcade games, and he's trying to update with data and stuff like that, but he wasn't getting enough foot traffic, so he made up a fake arcade game that kills people in order to get them to, get more foot traffic here, and then maybe I could get more data or some shit, which is like, yeah, so it's like, oh, that's kind of both evil and good, because there's in this video I found is by Ahoy.
I like that name.
Yeah, so Ahoy, he has a huge video just talking about, the entirety of this myth, and also even doing the sleuthing of, like, where did this even come from in the first place? Who talked about it first? And it turns out the myth got super popular when a IGN magazine came out talking about old arcade myths and stuff like that, and one of them was Plebius. And it turns out from this one lone magazine, because IGN was so popular, it would, spread like wildfire. So this is why you even remotely know about Plebius in the first place. And also he kept researching further back, and it turns out, like, oh, this one lone arcade, basically this is like going all the way back to like just about early 90s to 80s of like who had a website back then, and this one website is called coinop.org. Basically it's like, again, data of like old arcade machines and stuff like that, and he finds all traces go all the way back to this one web page, and they have about the same info as every other web page, and has like the same image as every other web page, and like it seems like everything stems from this one web page of like, okay, so is this like whoever owns this website, like, is this where all this myth came from? Like, is this one dude? And yeah, like he just goes into it, and he pretty much like looks like he solves a mystery of like, yeah, so it turns out this guy who put in a what's it called, a clue or whatever for the magazine of like, oh, you have this article coming up next time for like myths and whatever, here's a myth you can get a bite on. And of course the person who was writing the article was like, this sounds like bullshit, but he ends up writing it anyways because he probably needed shit to fill out.
Yeah, no, that thing is okay. So I've heard the Plebius, what's it called? The Plebius. I can't even say the name correctly because I don't like this story. Like my entire thought process when I was reading it and listening to it is just like, so this is a game that went out into like select number of arcades. No one talked about it. Even back then, like that would have been like a big thing that like people would have like talked about if it was that popular as the way it was put in the stories that I read. They were like,
oh yeah, it
was pretty popular at the regular things. So you'd figure other arcade stores would hear about this and ask to have their own copy. They'd find out who the producer was. But like the way it's done is it just like
it was just pretty much of like it was there and it's gone and he never heard of it again. And it was like, no, yeah, a lot of it just kind of doesn't hold any water or salt or how that phrase goes. Is like none of it, like it doesn't make any sense of like how could this machine sprout up and then disappear, and then how could like people who make this goddamn machine takes a lot of people to make a fucking arcade machine. Like it takes like, I think he even talks in the video, he says it takes like a good like amount, like 50 to 100 people to make a good arcade machine. So it's like, how did any of these people not talk about it? Like there's even another fact of like, okay, so let's say they killed everyone who made this machine or something and they couldn't say anything, but it's like, well, there would have been like a machine somewhere that would probably been like, sprouted up or in someone's arcade collection, and it's like that even doesn't exist, or even a ROM dump, and it's like that doesn't show up anywhere either. So it was like, well, a lot of it just goes to like, this is just a terrible creepypasta technically, like just a terrible creepypasta.
But that's the thing, and as you put in the Black My Podcast thing, is Plebius the game. This game is a huge hoax, but No Man's Sky isn't. I love the fact that you put that in there because I'm like, I wanted to play No Man's Sky. It looked like it was it looked actually like, okay. I will give No Man's Sky its prop defense. It kind of deserved the credit it got because it was a really big ambitious project. It just fell flat, and that was the only problem with it.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, like, it got overhyped in the first place, and it was a really small team. So it was like, fuck, this is probably their first project of them working on it and going, okay, let's make a video game. This is going to be fucking cool. And then end up overhyping it by both Sony and the fucking CEO himself. So that didn't help. And freaking the production line for this game should have been like released like another year later. Like it should have been. And then they're like, no, we can release it early. That's fine. And I'm like, no, that would blow up in your face so hard. To the point of, I think people were stalking the studio, making sure they were actually working on something. Like, it got so bad. Oh, it's so bad.
Man. Like, a really big dumb thing for me is just the idea. Like, it was a really well written thing and stuff like that, but at the same time, I sit down and I looked at how
the Polybius.
How it was like Polybius was just like written out and described and stuff like that. I'm just kind of like sitting there like looking at the screen, reading it. I'm just like, I don't know. I like, it's really well written. Like the idea behind it is really well written and stuff like written.
Yep.
It's just, yeah, I'm slipping. That means we should probably end this podcast here soon.
Yeah.
But like, it's not even that it's not even that it's bad thing, but like it's not even super bad.
If anything, there wasn't enough forethought into those like haunted arcade idea, or it's even like, oh, the government controls this arcade machine or something. Because it's like, if let's say the government was doing this and they were trying to find like the last starfighter of a person, or maybe not even like, oh, just put this lone arcade machine out in this one location and see if it would, record the happenings of the people who play it. That's plausible. But at the same time, it's like, fucking no, because there's too much. There's people in the 80s would have, talked nonstop shit about it and stuff like that. So it's not fathomable to even, it just doesn't exist. And there's not even a single photo of gameplay of this goddamn thing. And even so, like, people have tried to make gameplay photos of like what Polybius could have been. And it's like, oh, these are just fan-made things, not the real thing that could kill people. I was like, whatever. Although I do like the hour-long story of the Polybius, research. The one thing I did like, though, is that in the video it showed examples of other arcades at the time, of like, oh, if you would have saw this arcade game, you would have thought this is mind-blowing. That could have been Polybius or something. And the one game that they showed, I put a video up in one of the chats. I forget where, but it's called.
It's in here in the main chat. It's up by where you posted.
Yeah, it's a Cube Quest. It's
the one Cube Quest, 1983 Simu Trek. Arcade laser discs. And like, I'm not gonna lie, that like I haven't watched the video, but like just looking at the thumbnail, like, yeah, no, I can believe that.
Yeah, like, but the funny thing is, though, it starts from images. It starts from like 3D cube Vectrex type of like, oh, just lasers on a black screen type of thing, and then the game then you select your level, you select a level, you go into it, and then it does these like CD effects of like you flying through this like trippy scenery, and it's live action scenery, so it's flying at you and it's all live action scenery coming at you. It's like, oh, this is actually clever, really fucking clever, because it feels like you're going into things. But yeah, like, that's the majority of the gameplay of like, oh, it's like Tempest, or it's like, this Cube Quest or whatever. It's like, just, because of the lack of internet, people take a story and, share it and keep expanding on it without realizing it.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I wonder if like the idea of Polybius is just like this stupid over the top little story that happened. And like, it's not that it's like, it's not a bad thing. It's a really cool story, but at the same time, I kind of stop and I look at it and go,
it's like, it's fucking dumb.
Yeah.
Or even, Or it's even like you go to summer camp for the first time and someone's like, oh, share spooky stories. And it's like, it's either just going to be really fucking retarded or really fucking predictable. Okay, let's do this.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a podcast.
Yeah, you know what?
Because, yeah, like we're gonna call it there. We've only been going for 50 minutes. Like it's like
at least 30,
yeah, we're okay,
40 minutes.
Sorry, this
45
is,
minutes. Like, yeah, at least I think.
Like 45 minutes. Like I'm just looked at like the audio position of how long I've recorded for, but like at the same time, I'm just kind of burnt out because we don't have a third person to bounce topics off of. So we just burned through our 3-4 topics, just like. Bang, done.
Yeah, they were just gloating about fucking SPC. So if you don't know if that site existed, now you do.
Yeah, I strongly urge everybody go at least give it a gander. It's a good thing to read because it's actually pretty fun. But yeah, other than that, this has been Black Mind Podcast with Allan and Josh for a very, very slow podcast this week.
Oh, it's the slowest podcast.
We needed a third person really badly. But, hey,
we need a third person.
Well, we are a 3-man band with 2 people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a good night, and we will be back hopefully next. God damn it! We'll be back next week. Have a good time.
Yep. Button.
I'm recording now.
Or we could just completely forego the entirety of the structure and just be like, "How was your day?" Just talk about all the dumb shit.
All the dumb shit, indeed.
Yeah. Or hell, just go back to that topic of creepypasta of yesterday.
Yep. Creepypasta /
Well, I booted up and hit record.
Yep, I've hit record.
Cool. I'm not sure if he wants to, because I've read on another server that he has his pet died, so he's kind of not great.
Well, just need the. I'll just scroll up and grab the information that we have for our.
Yeah, I'll just whip that into the.
There we go.
Where is that link? There it is.
I've already got it open.
Oh, I spelled that wrong. Oh, come on. There we go. Not Skyrim. What was the other one? Forever Sky. No Man's Sky. What else? Oh yeah, let's talk about SCP My Faves. See if I can find it on their website, but they label everything by number, right? And it's not really necessarily by name.
Yep.
It's going to be annoying trying to find certain ones. Oh, here it is. Found one of them. Oh, and Allan, are you still remotely playing Pokemon at all?
I play Pokemon, yes.
Because there's a huge ordeal right now with the Mega Stones. Apparently, you can still get them through code up until next week.
Which one? What?
So once in a while they release a code saying, "Hey, you can get these Mega Stones for these certain Pokemon," and it's like 4 per code. For some reason, they are just straight up just shutting off the service for that, for getting it, like, basically you can't, when you type in the code, it doesn't do anything anymore, but they're shutting it off next week.
I did not know this.
Yeah, so there's a huge list of the codes. I think I found it here. It's kind of bullshit how a lot of companies now are like, oh, we'll just do it through the internet, it's fine. And it's like, no, because what happens if you just don't exist? There. Follow that. Just click on the image and follow, and just type in all those codes. You get all the stones. Basically, the ones on the right-hand side of the image, anyways.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I was trying to update this.
I should probably go grab my 3DS and do this. I will do it after the podcast, though. So, shall we
Sure.
start this crazy bullshit?
Sure. It's too bad I don't have other musical instruments around me, because I could be like, oh, let me get my oboe, because this is going to be this shitty slow podcast.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be a really slow podcast tonight. Okay, we should sync. Syncing in 3, 2, 1.